service project, the swim project at the Boy Scout camp. President Mary Pat was very instrumental in that. We completed all the paperwork. Nothing's complete till the paperwork and the invoicing is done. So now that's officially complete. And your club donated a bunch of swim safety stuff to the Boy Scout camp. Chocody. I'm going to learn how to say it at some point in time. It's the Boy Scout base camp. I would like to call Tom Schneider up to the podium to make an announcement.
I'll take a prop with me here. On every table, Patty has put out West Jax Rotary Blood Drive. March 23rd, Wednesday, we'll have the Blood Mobile here from One Blood. In fact, our friends at Riverside Rotary who meet here in the mornings, Wednesday morning, they are now having them come out and they've kind of said, game on. They want to challenge us to the number of pints each club will give that day. And they're playing this up as a David versus Goliath, of course, since we're the bigger club. But anyway, if you can give blood that day, if you'd like to sign up, please do. I think I've signed up the first person, which is my wife, Nancy Schneider, who's not here today, but will be here on that day to give blood as a guest. So.
Thank you, Tom. I got the email from President Gene from Riverside this morning. 14 of their 30 members have signed up to donate blood. Before that, I may have had a wager with President Gene. So don't let me down, guys. We got to do 15. Got to do 15. Okay. All right. I would ask for Lee Davis to come up and do a pop-up, and then she'll have Family of Rotary as well.
Thank you very much, President Ike. I put a flyer on everyone's table. Our next social is coming up next Wednesday, so we won't have lunch here Wednesday. We'll meet in the evening from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Community Health Outreach there on Timaquana Road. And there's a short list of items that they'll need: baby diapers, wipes, baby formula, baby food. In addition to that, they are in the process of trying to purchase a new truck. So I'm going to ask Meredith to gather any information about that. We're taking monetary donations for that. All right, Family of Rotary. Family of Rotary, excuse me. So we had a birthday yesterday, Stu Irwin, happy birthday. And later this week on March the 7th, we have Harry Platt. I'd also like to say, congratulations to President Ike. He is now the board chairman of the River Club. Congratulations, Ike. Congratulations. Congratulations to Joe Springer. Is Joe here? Okay. Sorry. His daughter Amanda gave birth to a beautiful baby girl on February the 24th. She weighed in at 6 pounds, 13 ounces. His daughter Amanda and the baby girl Mackenzie are doing very well. Congratulations. Are there any other Family of Rotary news items? All right. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing everyone next Wednesday.
Also wanted to thank Bill Andrews for coordinating and hosting President's Night last week. President's Night is the night where we honor the president-elect, and all the presidents try and scare the crap out of the president-elect. So true story. I will now turn it over to Raul Sharma for the Sergeant of Arms report, followed by William Milne, who will introduce the program.
Well, it is clearly evident that the Rotary Club of West Jacksonville has some of the best traditions in all of Rotary. How about a big round of applause to the traditions of this club? I missed you guys last week. I hope you missed me. You didn't miss the jokes. The scouting report on this Sergeant at Arms that you're looking at is he brings energy, he brings people together, but he is the country's worst joke teller. So Jimmy, I appreciated the reminder there for that. But boy, this is Rotary Recess at its finest. Not only do we focus on excellence in all things, not only in service, but in hospitality. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming and please provide a loud ovation to Ken Smallwood of Orange Park Rotary Club and past district governor. Ken, welcome to our club. Welcome. I don't think there's any argument that Tom Schneider, first-year member of the Rotary Club of West Jacksonville, is making an immediate impact. And boy, is he bringing more people to our club as well. He has a guest with us today. Tom.
Thank you, Rahul. My guest today is Corey Schmidt, who is a wildlife biologist with exceptional wildlife removal. I'm sorry, I should have known that right off the top. But anyway, she's been in Jacksonville for about a year, and she's visiting Rotary clubs in the area. Her dad is a Rotarian, originally in Memphis, so she kind of grew up in the family of Rotary. So please welcome her. If you get a chance afterwards, stop by and say hi.
Tom, thank you for that introduction. And Corey Ann, welcome to Jacksonville. Welcome to Rotary Club of West Jacksonville. And I think it's fair to say this is a recruiting visit. So we're going to make sure we stay on top of you. Corey Ann, welcome. You know, I have to say this on the occasion of bringing members of our police force and JSO. They are an essential part of our lives. Make no mistake about it. In our states and cities across the country, all of our police force and the jobs that they are asked to do day in and day out, and they respond to the call. Tasked with maintaining law and order, I view them as modern day superheroes. That might be a little bit of a bias, but that's how I feel. However, I still think we can enjoy some police jokes, and there are some for today. The top 5 police jokes for today, ladies and gentlemen. Number 1, when the police pulled Rahul Sharma over for speeding, they said to him, Rahul, you know, you got to slow down. This is unacceptable. Rahul said, what am I supposed to do with this speeding ticket, officer? The officer replied, keep it, Rahul. When you collect 4 of them, you get a bicycle. Joke number 2. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. And we're just getting started. We're just getting started. What do you do when a cop pulls you over and gives you a ticket and asks for papers? Well, simple. You reply scissors and take off. You guys missed me. I know. You guys missed me. Number 3, what is the kind of topping that cops really hate the most on a breakfast morning toast? What's the topping that they hate the most? Well, I'll help you. Traffic jam. They don't like traffic jams. Listen, I can take the booze. I can take the booze. Okay, I really can. Dan Dodd said if they boo you, Rahul, they love you. So I thank you, Dan, for that encouragement. Yeah. Jimmy, too, for that matter. Joke. Hey, how about this? This is a screenplay. I'm really setting up our speaker for today. How about this screenplay? I'll play the officer, and I'll also play the driver. I'm the officer. Sir, I notice your eyes are bloodshot. Have you been drinking? Now I'll be the driver. Sir, I notice your eyes are glazed over. Have you been eating donuts? Keep going, Sharma. Keep going. Hey, listen. Hey, you guys read the scouting report. Joke number 5. Cop and driver. Cop. When I saw you driving down the road, I guess 55 at least. I guess 55 at least. The driver. You're wrong, officer. It's only my hat that makes me look that old. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Top 5 police jokes of the day. Thank goodness this concludes my report, Mr. President. Now I'm going to send it over to William Milne. Yeah, we need an ovation for that. Let's send it over to William Milne to introduce our speaker for today and really our heroes for this country. Thank you so much, William Milne.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. Today we are honored to have one of my good friends and one of my classmates and former teammates, Officer Randy Reeves, with us. Randy was born and raised in Jacksonville, attended what was then Episcopal High School, now Episcopal School of Jacksonville, where he anchored. It is probably the greatest center in Episcopal football history. He went to Auburn University and was on the scouting team as a backup long snapper, right? That's right. And when he got back to Jacksonville, he got into law enforcement. He got into both the detective and to the patrolling divisions, and then also spent a very long time working the violent crimes task force as a sergeant. Probably perhaps his most prestigious honor is he was the vice president of the Fraternal Order of Police for 6 years, recently just got sworn in as the president. When he's not taking care of us and taking care of all those around us through law enforcement, he's also happens to be the best, without a doubt, the best the Little League flag football coach in this area. Randy Reeves, please come up and join us.
All right, is that good? Okay, good deal. So first off, thank you, William, for that. I can tell you back in our high school days, William was older than me, so I've taken many hits from William Milne, and he's the nicest guy around. He's as nice back then as he is today, but he could lay you out on the football field. And I've been on the receiving end of that many times, so I know that. I want to thank Tim Johnson, too, for inviting me to speak. I appreciate you. If you know Tim, he does a lot for our members, running our pension fund, has a tough job, and does a great job at it. So we appreciate you, Tim. So when I was invited to speak, I can tell you, first off, I was, I love to come and talk. I can talk for an hour about all kinds of different topics, but to talk to a group like this means a whole lot for not only me, but for the men and women that I represent. So I appreciate you guys not only coming here, you guys have a span of influence in this community, and it's important that we engage you guys and keep you up to date on what's going on, what our guys are seeing on the front lines, because that has not been happening in the past, and we're going to try to make sure that we change that. So I appreciate you guys for reaching out to me to come and talk and give you some of my insight of what's going on. So first off, I always like to talk about, I know there's probably a lot of people in this room that know what the Fraternal Order of Police is. There's probably some that don't. So sometimes we get kind of mixed up. We are not the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. So the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, we have a great sheriff. Mike Williams runs the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, does a great job. We have a very professional organization. So we're lucky to have a professional police department here in Jacksonville. What we are and what our role is, we're part of a large organization. Fraternal Order of Police is a police union. We are there to represent the men and women that are out there on the streets, making the traffic stops, making the arrest, the officers, the sergeants and lieutenants that are actually working the street 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. If you call the police, one of our members is going to show up. What do we do for them? We are there for handling any internal complaints. We're with them as their representation. We have a full-time on-staff attorney that does nothing but represent police officers. We do that. We go through the criminal process. We go through the internal process. The other thing that we do for them that's very important is we're their lobbyists. And over the last 4 or 5 years, there's not been a time that they don't need a lobbyist more than they do right now. And so we negotiate with the mayor's office, with the city council to make sure they're paying their benefits. And then we're their advocate. So we're their voice. They're not allowed while they're working to give an opinion and to speak out. They're going to stay neutral, but that's where we come in. So that's why it's really important for us to be loud, for us to make sure that we educate the public of what's going on. So when I was thinking about what to talk about today, again, I know I only have about 15, 20 minutes. I want to hit on and I really want to concentrate a lot on what we see here in Jacksonville, because I think that's really what matters to everybody in this room. I know it matters to our guys here, but I can't do that, I don't think, unless I talk about some of what we've seen nationally over the last 2 years. So I know I'm not talking to anybody unless you've lived in a cave over the last 2 years. I can tell you there's never been a worse time to be a police officer in the United States. And it's because of what happened over the last 2 years. Our officers have faced more backlash from far left-wing activist politicians, from the media, the national media, the defund the police movement. We have literally seen over the last 2 years, the national media and people that have influence, demonize our law enforcement officers for showing up to work and doing their job every single day. And while they demonize them, they have glorified the suspect. You never hear them talk about the victims. You never hear them talk about anybody that. They care more about what the suspect rights are. And so our officers have taken a toll on that. So looking around the nation, as a union president, we have close to 400,000 members nationally, from Chicago, Minneapolis, New York, Portland, Seattle. So we go and we talk and we listen to each other. I can tell you the rates, and when you look at the statistics of what's happened over these last 2 years, these things don't happen overnight. So that defund the police movement, that anti-police rhetoric that's been being spread, what you're starting to see now is that experiment has been running, and now we're starting to see the results. Last year, 12 major US cities in the United States have seen the highest murder rate they've ever had on record. That's 12 major US cities. Just to tell you the violence that our officers have to face every day, we had just last year 346 police officers shot in the line of duty in the United States. 346 officers shot. That's not shot at, that's shot and hit. Out of those 346, 64 of them have passed away and died because of that. So if it wasn't for our ballistic vest, medical technology, that number would be a lot higher. But we truly, the facts are, and the statistics don't lie, we live in a country now to where almost every single day in this country, a law enforcement officer is shot and hit in the line of duty. And to us, that's very unacceptable. And I truly believe, and we know that this uptick is due to what we saw happen 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And so what do we do to stop that? So we look around this nation and we see, how did this all happen? I can tell you, and I tell this story, it was a powerful story. 7 years ago, I went to a nationwide conference, FOP leaders. We had the president from the Chicago Lodge. Chicago is a very big lodge, and they've been in the FOP business and the police business for a long time. If you turn on the TV, you see Chicago all the time coming up. I'll never forget, 30-year guy, been a president for 7 or 8 years up there. He gave a presentation to all the other lodge presidents across the country, literally talking about how demoralized his guys were. He said, I'm facing a problem now where my morale is so low between officers. Now, this is 7 years ago. This isn't just 2 years ago, 7 years ago. My morale is so low. And he tied it back to, he said, what happened was we have a mayor that came in, and next thing you know, they got elected. And now the mayor controls their police chief. We're lucky enough here that we have an elected sheriff. So you guys get to vote for who you believe should be sheriff. Chicago, they have a mayor. He gets to appoint whoever he wants to be police chief. Police chief started firing individuals for doing their jobs, listening to the activists, listening to the suspects, caring more about what the suspects are than the victims and the officers that are out there working every single day. They lost that. Next thing you know, he said, we had a state attorney, a district attorney that took over office and started decriminalizing themselves, decriminalizing different crimes. They said, our officers are arresting people for strong arm robbery, and the guy's laughing in the back seat because he knows he's going to be out in a week. He said, then we have judges that get elected and they slap people on the wrist when our officers go out there and put their lives on the line. And next thing you know, this person gets a sentence when you think they'd be getting 10 years, they're getting probation or they're getting less than a year. So his force got really demoralized. And he said within a span of, after that all happened, within a span of about a year, and he literally said he would go to roll calls and his guys would look like he was talking to people that were at a funeral. His guys started feeling as if the community didn't have their backs anymore. It wasn't as much about money, but it was about the feeling of, if I go out here and get in trouble, I'm not going to be able to provide for my family. I'm going to be demonized. I'm going to be out of here. So what happened was these officers started going to calls, writing a report, getting back in their car, going and park their car down the street, leaving the high crime areas, and just handling calls for service. There was no proactive police work. The criminal element in that city picked up on that. It doesn't take them long. They are very slick when it comes to that. And what he told us there was, he said, we have lost streets in our city. We've lost neighborhoods in our city. And he goes, and if we don't stop it, we're going to end up losing the city as a whole. And that was 7 years ago. And that's really stuck with me, especially with what we've seen over the last 2 years. Chicago now, I don't think anybody wants to go to certain parts of Chicago. I think during the last summer, they had more people murdered in one weekend in Chicago than they had a year in Afghanistan during a time of war. I mean, that's shocking that goes on here in the United States. So all that negativity and all that bad stuff that we're talking about, the good news is in Jacksonville, and I can tell you even through these dark times, these last 2 years, we have been sheltered somewhat from all of that. And that's number one, because of the community. For people like you guys that support the police, we know we have a silent majority. All the polling shows in Jacksonville, we have a professional agency. We have a good relationship with the community. And that's great. but we cannot take that for granted. And so we've seen around the nation the game plan. We've seen how these cities have gone and have lost to the criminal element in town. And we got to make sure that we arm ourselves here locally so that doesn't happen. So talking about here locally, the trials that we face, though they might not be as strong, you know, we are lucky to be in a state with a great governor who is not afraid to stand up for law enforcement. We just gave our governor, Ron DeSantis, the FOP endorsement. He chose Jacksonville to come to receive that endorsement. You might have seen that last month. He doesn't back down. He doesn't just talk about supporting law enforcement. He shows in his legislation that he supports law enforcement. We have a mayor that has stood up for law enforcement. We have a sheriff that has stand up for law enforcement. We have a lot of city leaders, a lot of judges, city council that has stood up for law enforcement. So our guys feel that, and it really has been a protection for us. But again, we can't let that, we can't take that for granted. We got to make sure that we keep pushing forward. Good news is Mike Williams has been here 7 years as sheriff. He has hired 60% of our agency. So 60%, just to let you guys know, a lot of people don't know this, 60% of our agency has less than 7 years experience as police officer. So that's a double-edged sword. It is great that we have a well-trained young police force. It really is. We have, I talk to every single person that comes in to sign them up for the union. And I have a lot of respect for the young men and women that are taking this job right now under this circumstance. There's never been a more dangerous time to be a police officer. I have a 7-year-old son, and I can tell you, standing up here, I would not pick for my son to go down the path of being a law enforcement officer after what I've experienced over the last 5 years. But we do have a very young police force. And why is that so important? And that's something that we really have to pay attention to. Number one, we want them to stay here. We want them to make this a career. Okay, we train them. We want them to be invested in this community. We want to make it a career. And number two, we got to make sure that we are able to show them that this community supports them. We don't want to see what's happened in Chicago and what's happened in Minneapolis come here to Jacksonville and try to take us over. I can tell you, though we have been shielded from it, we do have some of it. You might see things on TV when it comes to the activists in town. It's sad that the local media gives them a platform. That's another thing that we have heard from around the nation is that these extremist groups and these far left-wing fringe activists, they get on TV and they're given a platform and they present themselves. If you listen to them talk, you would think that they represent 60% of the community. And so I hear them talk here in Jacksonville, and we have a couple, and I'm not even going to say their names because it's not worth repeating, but they are there to try to have a disconnect. If the community and the law enforcement get along, they become irrelevant. So they're not in the business of being irrelevant. So they are going to stir up everything that they can to try to make it look as if the community and the police don't get along. I know that's not the case. I was a sergeant, and my last position on the street was a sergeant over a violent crimes task force, like William was saying. And we went into some of the roughest areas in town, some of the highest crime areas in town. We didn't dress like the normal police. We wore TAC gear. We didn't handle regular calls. We went out to proactively look for felons with guns and try to get illegal guns off the street to curb some of this, the murder and the violence that we see. We were very successful at doing that. But I tell this story because it happened to me time and time again. As my guys made arrests in these communities, as we walked in and out of these communities, dealing with these criminals, it wasn't the people that were at the house that we're dealing with. They wanted to do nothing with us. They cussed us out. They yelled, spit, whatever. They were part of the criminal element. But as we walked back to our cars many, many times, and I couldn't even tell you how many times this has happened, I would come across people of all color, African Americans in some of the worst areas in this town. And they would come up to us and they'd say, "Hey, Sergeant, why can't we see you guys more often?" And it sticks with me a lot because you think about those are the individuals that happen to live in this community. And the ones that are pushing out all this hate and discontent for the police, it's not the ones that are out there actually, truly trying to raise families in this area. So that really hit a spot. So we have to fight back everywhere we can when we see this false narrative being pushed out about our police officers from activists. So that's really what we can do. I can tell you that Jacksonville, we are excited about Jacksonville growing. I think everybody in this room, I'm sure there's people, I've lived here, I'm 39 years old, so 39 years, people have been here a lot longer than me. I think Jacksonville is really booming. I mean, we've seen Jacksonville grow, and we got to make sure that that agency grows with us. We're excited about all the improvements to downtown. We're excited that so many people want to move to Florida, and but we want to make sure that these politicians that get elected realize that as great as those big buildings look and as great as new parks and new stadiums and all these things look, if we don't fund law enforcement, those stadiums and all those things, nobody's going to want to enjoy those things because the criminal element will be all in and around there. So I really hope that we can learn from these other cities. I made the commitment as the FOP president when I ran for vice president 6 years ago that we can no longer be the silent majority. We really can. And as a supporter of law enforcement and truly my members, what's best for them also lines up with the community. It goes right next to each other. So you're going to see the Fraternal Order of Police here locally. We are going to be way more at the forefront, not only in a sheriff's election or mayor's election, but we are going to make sure that we're in the forefront. We hold judges accountable. We're going to be making sure that we hold city council leaders accountable. We're going to make sure that we're involved in school board races. For so long, people didn't think school board races really mattered. Over the last 2 or 3 years, the school system is one of the most important things we have. And my officers come back to me all the time. And the people they're dealing with, the most violent and the people they have the most problems with are not 35-year-olds. The most problem they have with is the age of 15 to about 23. 15 to 23. So our school systems are important. So you're going to try to look out for that. When you see our logo on an endorsed candidate, we want to make sure that you know that we spend a lot of time and we spend a lot of effort to try to target these candidates that are pro law enforcement. And we wanted to let you know that we take that very serious. And again, that's something that you got. Do it. All right, I'm back. So I'm trying to think where I was. So that's the thing with the politics. Again, another thing we're going to do, and I think 2 years ago it was very easy to see those that were against law enforcement. They were pounding the defund the police drum. Everybody on the far left, that was something that was their rallying cry. They now have talked to all their consultants and their high-priced Democratic strategists, and they've said, hey, if you want to get elected anywhere, don't use the word defund. Because they've done polling and 85% plus people say, we don't want to defund the police. We want to fund the police more. So now they're starting to use different language. When you hear people say we want to reallocate funds from the police, that's basically changing the word defund because they know that has a negative connotation. They use the word reallocate. So when you do that, we're going to call out those individuals. We have some of these individuals now that 2 years ago, they were banging that defund the police drum. Now they've gone into hiding a little bit and they say, oh, no, I just want to reallocate funds. We're not going to let them get off. If we feel like someone's running, whether they're running for mayor, city council, or dog catcher, if they are sympathetic towards the activists in town, we're going to make sure that we educate the public on that. And we're going to be at the forefront of doing that. I feel like that's what is best for our members and our men and women on the street. And we want to make sure that we get it as safe as we can for these officers. So in closing, I'll tell you, I have a ton of people come to me and they always talk and they say, hey, we love the police. We really appreciate it. And I tell you, the words of encouragement especially to a young officer, it goes a long way. It really does. If you see an officer at the gate station getting something to drink, hey, you tell him, hey, just appreciate what you do. That's all that matters. It really does go a long way, especially to these young guys. So I encourage you to do that. But I'll close with this story. And people ask me all the time. So I'm always talking to our members. We're always going out. We just had a police shooting last night on Lane Avenue. You might have seen it in the news. We had 2 individuals. We had an armed robbery suspect run from our officers, had 25 minutes of him from the robbery. He was in an apartment. He decided that he wasn't giving up his gun. Okay. He came out. 2 of our officers gave chase. They actually got into a close combat with this individual, the armed robbery suspect who was armed with a firearm in his pocket. They were in a close battle struggle. That suspect chose to fire and try to kill one of our police officers while they're in that battle. And they ended up having to engage in a deadly confrontation with him. Thank God we didn't lose a police officer just last night. But I tell you that story to say my officers, every time I talk to them, they're not scared to go get in close battle contact and take rounds for people and maybe get shot at for this community because they swore to protect this community. They're not scared of that. They're not scared of getting high-speed chases, chasing convicted felons with a bunch of drugs and guns in the car. Truly, and they won't say this to the public because they don't want to look weak. But what they are scared of is bureaucrats and politicians that are going to come after their livelihood. And it's going to take the community and it's going to take the silent majority. So when people ask me, what can I do for law enforcement? What you can do for law enforcement is when those kind of people come after them for doing their job, the silent majority can't be silent anymore. And we ask people to step up and support us and support those candidates. So I truly appreciate the time talking to you guys. It really is important for us to be here and for you guys to hear. And I just appreciate that you guys take the time to listen. And if you have any questions, if I can ever do anything for you, if you have any issues with the police, anything at all, I might not be able to help you, but I can promise you I can get somebody to help you very, very quickly. So I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll take any questions if you want to ask any.
Building the future of law enforcement and protecting and serving our communities. How about a round of applause for Randy Reeves, Fraternal Order Police? Joe, thank you for providing us with a new mic. If you have questions, if you could please raise your hand at this time and I'll bring a microphone over to you. Jim Overton, you have the first one.
Thanks. Officer in Minneapolis, Kim Potter.
Yep.
Went to jail.
Yep.
For picking the wrong weapon on a criminal charge.
Correct.
How many states can charge an officer with a criminal charge and not a civil charge? We don't do that here.
You can, yes, an officer can be charged criminally here. We have not had one charged criminally here. I can tell you, so what happens with our officers, when they get involved in a police involved shooting, my two officers that shot last night, we respond to the scene, our attorney, they have attorney-client privilege. They are treated as a suspect. Melissa Nelson, the state attorney's office, will get that case. Nothing will be done administratively until Melissa Nelson clears that case. If she does not clear that case, our officers can be criminally prosecuted. And that's a big misconception across the nation that these officers have some kind of safety net over them. It's just not true. There's no other job in this country that you could literally be criminally prosecuted and put in jail for doing your job. You get Monday morning quarterback over split-second decisions. So it really is, when I tell you these officers are putting uniforms on, going to work every single day for not a ton of money, and they're not only putting their livelihood on the line, they're putting their lives on the line. It truly is. So,
Randy, we have a question here. Brandon Hiller.
So who does the Fraternal Order of Police currently support in the sheriff's race, as there are several people there?
right.
If you don't have one yet, how do you come to that?
Yep, that's a good question. That's a good question. So we endorse, and I know there's some people in the room that have been through our endorsement process. We have a political action committee. I make sure that group is a diverse group when it comes to active and retired members. And we interview all of our candidates. The only race that every one of my members is going to vote for is going to be who we decide to be our sheriff. And me as president, I have decided that, we have about 6 or 7 candidates in the race. We're going to wait till that gets down to 2 candidates, and we're going to have a debate at our Fraternal Order of Police Lodge, and our officers are going to be able to submit questions. They're going to be able to listen to the candidates respond. And then I am going to allow all the officers to place votes. Whoever gets the most votes will have the endorsement of the Fraternal Order of Police. So, but that's a good question. Thank you. Yep.
Randy, I got the mic. A great presentation, a lot of information. One of the things that surprised me was the new recruitment. I think you said 60 to 65% of our current officers were hired since Sheriff Mike Williams was elected.
Correct.
Could you tell us a little bit more about what the FOP is doing with JSO around recruitment and retention?
Yeah. So we have a young department, and like I said, that's a double-edged sword. This mayor's administration has raised the salaries. I can tell you, that's another thing I didn't really touch on. Just like I don't want my son to go down the path of law enforcement, there is a lot of people. It is getting harder and harder to recruit good quality applicants to come be law enforcement officers, and for good reason. So we are seeing a battle on the law enforcement side of recruitment, where some agencies are raising their salaries up to entice people to come. Nothing our governor did. He has a sign-on bonus incentives for officers that live in other states to come be police officers here in Florida. So we, again, are lucky. Again, it shows us having a governor that supports law enforcement. We are seeing people transfer from Washington, D.C., from NYPD, from Chicago, and they're coming down here to be law enforcement officers. So we really, as an agency that needs more officers, that is going to grow with the city, we really need to take advantage of hiring some of these people away from these agencies that don't have their backs. So, great question.
Randy, if I can turn your attention across the room, Tim Alters has a question.
Yeah, thanks for all you do.
Yep,
And I
appreciate
know
you.
it's a violent job. But anymore driving down Atlantic Boulevard, Beach Boulevard, JTB, it feels like we're putting our lives in hand. And the only time I ever see the police do anything, they may have a radar gun out.
Right.
But that doesn't stop these people, the crazy driving. I'm not
Yep.
talking about a few miles over the speed limit.
Yep.
And I've had to slam on my brakes numerous times in the last 2 weeks
Mhm.
because people were making illegal left turns, running red lights, not beating the yellow, 3, 4, 5 seconds
Yep.
past the red light. And it's getting bad out there. And
It
my
is.
insurance rates have doubled in
It
the
is.
last 2 years and I haven't had a ticket or anything. So
Right, it is. To speak to that real quick, you're probably going to see reports coming out that the roads in Jacksonville are more deadly now than they've ever been. We've had a very uptick in traffic fatalities. I can tell you again, it comes back to staffing. We also have people calling the police for somewhat serious things, having to wait 20, 30 minutes because we just don't have free officers to send them. So again, the city as a whole, we already are the largest landmass city in the United States. We have about the same number of police officers today, positions, that we did 7 or 8 years ago. So to get the true individuals that need to be out there doing traffic every single day for a city this size, we need to add 200, 300 more officers as a whole so we can free these officers up to do that. So, but I 100% agree. And you are going to see in the next 6 months, because I know they pulled the numbers. Traffic is a major issue in Jacksonville.
Time for one more question. Mike Crumpler.
Pandemic, or I think some of these folks are just like thinking they're NASCAR drivers. They're weaving in and out
Yep.
of traffic, and it's not prevalent,
Yep.
but it's just a few bad apples who are putting all the rest of us in danger.
Yep.
And I agree with Tim. It's been a little bit of an uptick
Right.
here. Is it because of the pandemic, or what do they
I
think?
think I truly think it's just part of, again, becoming a major city. I think, again, we are just starting to see, I mean, our numbers are upticking so fast and so high. We have more vehicles on the road, and just with pure numbers, you're just going to see more of that. So I really think that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Appreciate you guys. Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thank you.
I'd like to present you with a Rotary token.
All right,
Really
thank you so
appreciate
much.
you being here today.
I
Thank you.
appreciate you. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Randy Reeves. All right, important announcement. We do not meet here for lunch next week. Next week's our social. It'll be at Community Health Outreach. Starts at 5:30. Community Health Outreach is located at 5126 Timaquana. So no lunch here next week. Community Health Outreach Social. The following week, we will meet for lunch and we'll have Rear Admiral Wes McCall will be our speaker. Don't forget to RSVP for future events, especially the Community Health Outreach, so we can get a good head count. I think we had over 30 folks at the last social. So it's an opportunity to bring spouses, bring your kids, bring your neighbors, bring potential Rotarians. I would like to ask Drew Bisbee to come up or lead us in the four-way test.
Okay, if everybody could join me in the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First, second, third, and fourth.
Our quote of the day: do not pray for easy lives, pray to be stronger men. John Fitzgerald Kennedy.